What's going on? It's Plague, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to objectively pick a class for Warlords of Draenor. And I'm using Mist of Pandaria abilities to sort of decide that for me, even though that's probably not the best way to do that, but really that's all we have to look at right now. So to do this, to look at it objectively, we're going to use a flowchart to sort of divide out the classes into categories. And I used emphasis on dots for this first box, and in any of these boxes really you can replace it with whatever you're looking for to tailor your class decision to certain parameters. Now I play a dot class, so right now I'm trying to divide out dot classes from classes that don't use dots very much. And when I say emphasis on dots, I mean, do your dots do most of your damage for you? Do they constitute the major percentages of your damage? If they do, then we'll move down here. Affliction, Demonology, Shadow Priest, and Survival. All of these use dots to do most of their damage. With Survival Hunter, you see Black Arrow, Explosive Shot, Serpent Sting, and depending on how you're talented, Murder of Crows. That's considered a dot. Do they emphasize ability procs? If they do, then you move over here to the right. Yes, they do. So Demonology always has Molten Core procs up, and Survival is waiting on those Explosive Shot, Lock and Load procs to get their damage out there. If they don't emphasize on procs, Affliction and Shadow, Affliction especially doesn't have very many procs, and I wouldn't really consider Nightfall to be a real proc. It doesn't do damage necessarily, if that makes any sense. It's more like, hey, you have another soul shard up, you can use it at your discretion. So with Shadow, it's sort of different from Affliction in that sense. Depending on how you're talented, Shadow can have procs, or it can have very few procs. And it also depends on how you define a proc, because Devouring Plague does sort of proc, but it's more like, hey, you have 3 Shadow Orbs, use them at your discretion. So if you're spec'd into From Darkness Comes Light and Divine Insight, which, because it's a very good possibility in Warlords that will happen, then this would be moved over to this category. But as it stands right now, I'm mostly spec'd into Twist of Fate and Solace and Insanity, so this does not apply to me. Alright, we're back to emphasizing dots. If they don't emphasize dots, which means their dots don't do most of their damage, Elemental Shaman, Mages, Destruction Warlock, BM and MM Hunters, and Moonkin. Emphasis on ability procs. Yes. Mages, Moonkins, and Elementals all have lots of ability procs. All 3 mage specs have procs, whether it's Arcane Missiles, Heating Up, and Pyroblast procs, or Ice Lance and Frostfire procs. Moonkins have Star Surge, while Elementals have Lava Surge, which is Lava Burst. So if they don't use ability procs very often, then you have Destruction, BM, and MM Hunters. With Warlocks, it's mostly about trinket procs over ability procs. That's what you're looking for. So I guess I could have split it up somehow to where you focus more on trinket procs, and instead of that you focus on ability procs, but that's not the way that I wanted to do it, because you can basically divvy it out the same way using this flowchart that I've made. So if they don't use them, you have these 3 specs. Destruction is all about saving up Chaos Bolts for Intellect or Crit procs. I'm not really familiar with BM and MM Hunters, but basically they don't really work with procs, I don't think. I know BM is all about kill command and micromanaging pets, and again, with all these hunter specs, you can have procs depending on how you're talented, but for the most part, I don't think procs play an integral role. So let me know what you think about this, because it's helping me at least divide them up so that I can look at their abilities and how they play over their lore and things of that nature. Things that are subjective instead of objective are not in this chart. This is simply looking at how they play in a raid setting. So let me know if you like the video. If you do, I will consider making a melee, healing, and tanking video, or you can take the same concept and do it yourself, and then you don't have to come back to my channel. So it's up to you. Let me know. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.